Hey everyone, Richard Phillips back at you with some more modern action. Today we are going to be playing the winner of the poll I put up on my Twitter account, Esper Draw Go, or Esper Control. One of my favorite and oldest Magic decks that I've ever owned for Modern. I started playing in like 2012, and it was the second Modern deck I ever owned. Things that are a little interesting about this list, we're very heavy on the Cling to Dust package. We're trying to do Frantic Inventory, Cling to Dust, self-mill stuff using Thought Scour. So the hope is that we can mill over Frantic Inventories and Cling to Dust and then use them for card advantage later on. I do like Thought Scour a lot. Thought Scour generally is better in Snapcaster Mage decks, but I didn't want to build a deck that's really weak to Graveyard Hate. So what's really nice about this deck is that all the cards still can act without Graveyard Hate, or with Graveyard Hate on the board. The exception being Drown the Luck. But we've got a really solid mill plan where we can either mill ourselves or mill our opponent if they are scrying cards at the top, or if we want to try to use Surgical Extraction to remove something like Tron Pieces. So a lot of versatility there. Our win conditions are 2 Jaces, Teferi, and a couple of Shark Typhoons, which is relatively standard. We also have 1 Creeping Tar Pit because I needed a way to kill Teferis. 3 Fairy. 3 Fairy is really, really problematic for the deck. You can also win with Kaya's Guile beatdowns with the 1/1, but that's really, really slow. In the sideboard, we're trying something interesting today. Because we're not playing any Snapcaster Mages, we could either play Kahira or Zerda as a companion. I'm going to try Zerda as a companion here. I usually don't include a companion. With the nerf, plus the fact that it's just a 3/3 really doesn't make it particularly good. But with matchups like Death Shadow or Jund, the ability to put it into your hand and then use Jace's Brainstorm ability to get card advantage is really helpful. This just happened to have 1 more toughness than Kahira, and generally you're not really planning on attacking with it anyway. Making opponent creatures can't block this turn could be useful with big Shark Typhoons. So if the opponent has, like, I don't even know, like maybe their own Shark Typhoon, honestly, we can make it so that we can get in with a Shark Typhoon token. So just, a little bit of extra text. I think it's a little bit better than the Vigilant. The other thing, and this is what I think it's actually good with, is that the decks that generally play Zerda are like Collected Company, green creature nonsense decks. And if we show this to the opponent and the opponent's playing some sort of reactive deck, they might keep a hand that's really heavy on like Fatal Pushes and cards that are just horrible against us. So I think that we might be able to gain some percentage points game 1 with revealing Zerda. In anything else in the sideboard that's kind of interesting? Not really. I guess we're playing an Eliminate because we need answers to 3 Fairy. This deck basically can't beat it in a million years unless we can draw Eliminate or can attack it with a Creeping Tar Pit or a Shark Typhoon token. And with that, we'll jump into a league. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and subscribe to the video if you are interested in having some input on what decks I play next, and contact me about strategies, concerns, questions, anything like that. All right, let's go. All right, everyone, welcome to round number 1. We're on the play. We'll reveal Zerda and hope the opponent keeps a weird hand because of that. This hand is a little light on a proactive game plan, but it certainly has card advantage, so we will keep it. I don't know what I want to get with this Flooded Strand, so I think I'm just going to start with Watery Grave tapped here. See what the opponent is doing. Opponent might be doing a Google search real quick to see what kind of decks are playing Zerda nowadays. And whatever they find, I can promise, is not what we're playing. Something that I'll have to remember is that Magic Online pops out at the beginning. Right when I go to my main phase, is going to pop out my companion here. And it's going to make it a little awkward for me to click the right land. See, it just did it right there. So I have to exit this out here real quick. Do this. I remember the first couple times I played with a companion, Magic Online popped out the companion tab for some reason during the first main phase, and I immediately played the wrong land. And I think I did it 2 in a row because it just moved all of the cards slightly to the right, and like I was clicking on this Flooded Strand, and everything moves to the right, and I played like a Field of Ruin. It was really bad, and I remember it happening quite often. Opponent is probably very confused, which is good. We do have Force Negation. Force Negation Frantic Inventory is always very awkward. We certainly could do it, but then we're really reducing the draw power of the Frantic Inventory. Alright, come on, opponent. This makes for bad content. How's everyone's day going? I know I can't really interact with you in live time because this is a recording, but it's Sunday afternoon here, about 2 o'clock. I'm recording this video here, and I'm drinking an adult beverage. Just hanging out with you. Hope you're all doing well. Like I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter. I'm relatively close to getting this channel monetized. Currently, any ad you see is making money for YouTube, not for me. I've made $0 off this channel. So if you're interested in supporting me in a relatively tangible way, subscribing to the channel would be wonderful, because once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I can start getting some YouTube checks, which would be great. And on Twitter, I will always post, what I'm playing with. I'll post some deck lists that I got 5-0s with. Like I recently got a 5-0 with a Bant, Thopter, Stoneforge, Euroza deck. It's like a combination of all of those. Has an infinite combo as well as some other stuff in it. It's really cool. All right, opponent looks like they're on Jund or something similar here. If they Thoughtseize us here, this is a perfect hand to Thoughtseize, because none of the cards that our opponent takes are going to be helpful for them. Like, what do you take here? Do you take Force and Negation? Because like, if you take Frantic Inventory, then the other one just draws me extra cards. Take Cling to Dust, it'll eventually get escaped with, the ability to take more stuff. Took a Frantic Inventory, alright. Sounds good to me. Alright, we drew a Plains. We could probably just play that, honestly, because we're definitely going to Frantic Inventory here. I know that this is not concealing information particularly well, but I think that playing an untapped land here, because we're certainly going to use our mana, is important. And I didn't want to just play Field of Ruin on 2, because it makes, like, we couldn't, if we drew Esper Charm, we wouldn't be able to cast it next turn. Alright, Tarmogoyf is fine. We will frantically inventory to draw 2 cards. Sounds good. Alright, unfortunately, we haven't really drawn anything after that. Probably should have played the Flooded Strand there, actually. Didn't think about that too much, but I think this might be okay. We'll see. We have the ability to Force a Negation something here. Just another Tarmogoyf. Okay, that's fine. If the opponent goes to combat here, we will eat the Thoughtseize with our Cling to Dust, because that'll shrink the Tarmogoyf a little bit. Okay, Thought Scour is fine. Just take 1 off of that. But now we are going to fetch here and Thought Scour ourselves. So we'll get an island, and then we will Thought Scour ourselves. All right, and there's a Fatal Push. Okay, cool. So we have the Cling to Dust, plus we got Fatal Push, and we can hold up Force Negation here. So I guess we will just play Flooded Strand and pass the turn. This way we can Fatal Push and hold up Force Negation, and we can fetch a Hallowed Fountain tapped. Most likely is going to be the plan here. If our opponent casts like a Liliana here, there's definitely a little bit of some question as to whether or not I'm supposed to get Hallowed Fountain or not, because the 2 life might really matter. So we will see. We have 2 Supreme Verdicts in the deck, and that's the card that we would need the double white for. Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, that's fine. Scavenging Ooze is very good against our deck. Sure, they're going to eat the Cling to Dust. That's fine. Probably eat a Frantic Inventory too. Maybe not right away. All right, and we will get Hallowed Fountain. There's a Supreme Verdict. That's great. We'll just go ahead and do that. Actually, we want to play the Flooded Strand first, because this way if the opponent goes to eat something, we can just put it on top of our library. So like if our opponent goes to eat the Frantic Inventory, we'll probably just put the Frantic Inventory on top of our deck. No, they're going to take the Fatal Push. That's fine. Okay? If our opponent plays multiple creatures here, we can just put Supreme Verdict on top of our deck, so I'm not going to do that right now. But drawing 2 cards with a Frantic Inventory here, especially against Jund, is probably not the worst thing in the world. Also, next turn we can put Zirda in our hand and cast it. Liliana of the Veil. So that's probably worth forcing, so we'll just force it. Cool. So now, based on everything I've seen here, I think what we are going to want to do is just put this Frantic Inventory on top. And we will just go ahead and draw with it. Yeah, that's great. We'll play the Field of Ruin so that we can blow up the Raging Ravine if they go for it here. We also have just another Force Negation, or obviously Cryptic. What we don't want to see here is Bloodbraid Elf, but everything else I think is fine. Land is certainly fine. Alright, if the opponent does nothing, we need to, I guess, figure out whether or not we're okay with them resolving a Crypt, or resolving a Kolaghan's Command. I think we're fine with that. I'm not going to mess around with anything here. Alright, and Flooded Strand can search us another Mystic Sanctuary, so very happy with that. We can just put Frantic Inventory on top if we would like. There's definitely some thought to putting Zirda in our hand here, but I think I'd rather hold up Cryptic Command plus Force Negation here. Our opponent almost certainly has like Fatal Pushes and stuff in hand. Tarmogoyf is probably just worth countering. So we'll counter it and draw a card, and then we can put the card back on top if we'd like to. We can put the Cryptic Command back on top. Drown of the Lock's a very good draw. This is worth doing on our untap step, so here we will untap and go get another Mystic Sanctuary and put a Cryptic on top. There's probably not a reason to play this other island because we want to be able to pitch something to Kolaghan's Commands, and or if the opponent goes for a Liliana or something like that, we can theoretically just let it resolve and pitch it, and then, yeah, perfect. So we're just going to win based on card advantage. Awesome. All right, so against Jund, we know for sure that the opponent is going to have Boils, is something to definitely play around. And they're going to have like Lilianas and Ren and 6s, so Eliminate's very good, killing with Planeswalkers. The question in this matchup always is how many like Engineered Explosives and Aether Gusts do you want to play? Like these are kind of your like maybes. You could also play Supreme Verdict. Like Supreme Verdict was good in that match or in that game, but usually they'll either cut Tarmogoyfs or drastically go down on Tarmogoyfs post board. A card that I like very little bit, or not very much, I guess, is Force Negation. Really not a huge Force Negation fan in this matchup. It was fine in that matchup, or in that specific instance, because we were able to counter their one thing and they didn't have a follow-up, but it's routinely just not that good. So I think I'm going to cut the Force Negation just for the Eliminate, and we can change this up a little bit more if we go to a Game 3, but I think I like this configuration for Game 2. Same with Cling to Dust. Like, Cling to Dust is a good value card, but it's not, they have Scavenging Ooze, and Scavenging Ooze is very good against it, obviously. So, that's also worth taking a look at. But our opponent's going to get rid of their bolts and fatal pushes and bring in probably like Ashioks and land destruction and like a lot of cards that are really, really bad for us, honestly. So just worth keeping that in mind. Probably also like Nihil Spellbomb, which is significantly better than a card like Leyline of the Void. Like Leyline of the Void's fine because they're just going down a card, but something like that draws a card and removes our graveyard stuff is kind of rough for us sometimes. Opponent's deciding whether or not they want to go first. All right, we will reveal Zerda again. Yeah, this hand is perfectly functional. Might even be better than the last hand we kept. So I'll definitely keep this. Opponent goes Thought Seize. Like, I mean, what are they going to take here? Kaya's Guile? Sure. Kaya's Guile is a really solid 2-for-1. It's very good in this matchup. It's not so good in some other matchups that we'll probably play today, like against Tron or something like that, but really good against any other deck trying to do fair things. Drawing a land is always nice. Magic Online pops out our companion, as I described earlier. They love doing that. All right, Nihil Spellbomb's fine. Alright, they have another land. That's fine, too. We'll just get, I guess, a blue-black source here. Or blue-white source. We have a Hallowed Fountain in hand. Yeah, let's just get a blue-white source. Sounds good. We have Supreme Verdict. There's no reason to Thought Scour here. I don't want to make Tarmogoyfs, like, too big, too quick. Play Polluted Delta and pass. We can just get probably a Swamp here if we'd like to. And cast Frantic Inventory. That's probably going to be our play here. The opponent has... Oh, they're just going to go for the Nihil Spellbomb now. That's fine. Cool. That's it. The things that could be scary here is if the opponent has a Liliana. Our hand's not super well set up to beat Liliana. If our opponent has Fulminator Mage, that could be annoying. Especially if they have like Fulminator loops. We have a very fair hand. We're hoping that our opponent plays something to the board here. Yeah, see, like that's a theoretically very rough one. So we'll go ahead and get Watery Grave here, I guess. And we will... I guess if we draw something, we're going to want to force it, right? So I guess we'll cast Frantic Inventory and then hope to draw one of our 2 force negations. The downside to this is that our opponent's going to be able to exile our yard here, but I think this is fine. All right. Not great, obviously. So we'd like to draw Eliminate or something here. They milled themselves. Okay. Milling themselves is interesting. Alright, drawing another land, though, is good. We can mill our opponent, attempting to draw Eliminate here. So I guess we'll do that to start. Okay, we rolled over a Boil, which I guess is good. And I guess we'll just play an island and pass. And then we can Cling to Dust, Fatal Push, or Thought Scour. I mean, I understand why Boil exists in in Modern to punish blue decks, but the card's just not really fair, considering we don't really have a card like, what's the Legacy one? Is it like Chill or something like that, that makes red spells cost more? Like, blue doesn't get any hate on other cards. We don't get Back to Basics, we don't get cards like that, but red-green gets Choke and Boil. So it'd be nice if there was, you know, like, more consistent color hosing. Alright, they got a Nile Spellbomb and some other stuff here. It's pretty good, actually. So I guess we just want to eat the Nile Spellbomb because it's the only card that they can cast this turn. Alright, there's a Force of Negation. Alright, they're going to mill us. Or they're milling themselves, okay. Alright, this is fine. And then I guess we're going to want to mill ourselves here. Oh, we pulled over a Frantic Inventory. Interesting. Okay. So we're going to actually get to draw 2 cards on this. That's kind of cool. But the opponent's going to get to play Wrenn and 6 if we let them untap with this. So I think we're just going to have to Supreme Verdict here, as sad as that is. Because of the Ashiok, we could have used the Field of Ruin to blow up one of their lands and then Fatal Pushed it, but that wouldn't have really got us anywhere. Yeah, so the Ashiok's a little rough. See if the opponent has Choke or Boil here. We'll have to force it if they do. They're going to return that and make us discard, so we might as well just force it then. We'll force pitching the Frantic Inventory because our opponent's going to exile our graveyard anyway. They milled us that time. Alright, so unfortunately we lost our second Supreme Verdict and we lost our Creeping Tar Pit, which is the card that actually matters. Alright, they're going to know what card we're drawing for the turn. It's a Drown in the Lock. Okay, that's interesting, and they're certainly going to have to play around that, so that's kind of cool. Alright, they're going to mill us again. Mystic Sanctuary, Drown the Lock. Interesting, okay. So we theoretically here could bounce something with a Cryptic Command, but I don't want to. Shark Typhoon's a great draw. So we can end a turn, just put in the Shark Typhoon. And the opponent's playing around Drown in the Lock right now, which is a little bit weird for them to try to play around. If they don't do it perfectly, they can get really punished. And the fact that we can get a solid 2-for-1 with the Shark Typhoon is really nice, actually. Worst draw from the opponent's Bloodbraid Elf for us, but it's almost always Bloodbraid Elf. Like, that's just Bloodbraid Elf's really, really good against control. Alright, the opponent's drawing cards, that's fine. The number of things I will counter with this Cryptic Command is a little bit lower than usual due to having the Shark Typhoon here. Okay, they're just going to mill us. This is fine. They might have another one. That might be why they're doing this. No. Interesting. I mean, there's no reason to not do it. Like, I can't just sit here and not do anything, so. If they have, like, K-Command, which is what I'm guessing they have is K-Command here, we can just pitch the Fatal Push to it. They could have Boil, actually. That might be what they have here. No, they just have K-Command. Alright, so they're going to return this, and we'll discard the Fatal Push. That's fine. Yeah, the chance of them having their one Boil is pretty low, I think. Archmage's Charm is a really good draw. Oh, and we even drew a Fatal Push. Wow. Alright, so now we got this Shark here that we're going to try to ride to victory. Thought sees us. Yeah, that's fine. It just reduces their clock. Took the Archmage's Charm, which is interesting. Okay. Cool with just untapping here. Assassin's Trophy, the Shark. Are we supposed to fight over this? Huh. Probably not. I'm just going to let it resolve. Let's go ahead and get a island. Alright, we drew another Field of Ruin. That's pretty good. And we can put Zirda in our hand. Holding up Cryptic Command. Perfect. That's fine. Took the Drown on the Lock, which makes sense. Yeah, we're going to have to counter this. Jace is great, and it works really well with our Zirda, like we were talking about before. We will tap this way, so that way we can Field of Ruin to shuffle away some cards if we don't like them. So, like, we don't need this or the Frantic Inventory, so we can just shuffle those away if we'd like. And we'll pass the turn. We unfortunately don't have the Swamp in our deck anymore, which means that maybe I should have tapped a little bit differently. Maelstrom pulls that. Yeah, that's fine. Sure. We've got Teferi for next turn. I'm going to get the Plains here because I don't want to get totally blown out by Boil or Choke if our opponent still has it. Even though Island is certainly better with the way that our hand's constructed. Alright, and we will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll cast the Teferi. Tick up Teferi. We'll play this land. I believe we still have one Mystic Sanctuary in our deck. So we'll untap Hallowed Fountain and Field of Ruin. Tarmogoyf's fine. We got Fatal Push and stuff for that. Alright, upkeep, we will fetch, and hopefully get our second Mystic Sanctuary, because I believe we still have one in the deck. We do. We'll go ahead and get our Cryptic Command. Draw that for the turn. What's the opponent going to do? Opponent's going to Assassin's Trophy, the Hero of Dominaria. We can respond to that by clinging their Ashiok, drawing the Cryptic Command. Counter this and return the Mystic Sanctuary. Go to draw step, play Mystic Sanctuary, put Cryptic Command back on top, and plussing Teferi. Untap a couple cards here. So now we just need to think about what could beat us. I believe there are very few things at this point that could actually beat us, but we need to be careful about Choke and Boil. Luris, so what they can get back a 0-drop. Yeah, Luris is fine. I'm going to hold up the Path to Exile for something that matters. Or hold up the Cryptic Command for something that matters, rather. Alright, and then we will Cling to Dust. I guess the Wren and 6 doesn't really matter. Just removing... Okay, perfect. So the opponent concedes. We just beat him with all kinds of card advantage. Super easy 2-0 win against Jund. And I'll see you at the beginning of round 2. I'm just going to kick Magic Online because it was freezing up a little bit there for us, as you saw. I know earlier today there was a problem with Magic Online this morning where like the Vintage Challenge got all messed up, and I think Magic Online is just running a little slow. So pardon, and see you soon. All right, everyone. Welcome to round number 2. Opponent is Goblin King, which is worth keeping in mind. They have both a Goblin and a Goblin King there. So we probably want to keep a hand that's good against Goblins. This hand's not particularly good against Goblins, but it's not bad. I mean, if they go with Vial, we can force pitching to Fairy and then just try to kill their stuff. So it's probably worth keeping. The Zerda pops out again, which is always awkward. Okay. We might want to get a black-white land here, as awkward as that is. Alright, that's Goblin colors. Yeah, it's Goblins. Alright, so we got to force this, because otherwise we're going to have nothing to do with the force. And we're going to get black-white with this land. Actually, we should probably just get black and eat their Bloodstained Mire. Yeah, so let's get black-white here. Yes. And we'll just eat their Bloodstained Mire. Alright. So we won't be able to drown in the lock something here, but I'm not too worried about that right now. We'll be able to drown in the lock something at some point. We can Fatal Push our opponent's play on 2. Only way this comes back to haunt us is if our opponent plays another Vial. Auntie's Hovel, revealing Goblin Matron. Okay, and they're just going to pass. That's fine. Jace the Mind Sculptor. All right, so we'll play Mystic Sanctuary here because we want the island to come in untapped. So there's definitely, thinking about it and the construction of our hand, there's probably, I would say, significant reason why we would want to... the opponent's just going with a Munitions Expert. Sure. There's definitely a reason why we'd want to have gone for Cling to Dust on our own land rather than our opponent's land, but not horribly too worried about that right now, at least. All right, so Goblin Chieftain is a little bit rough. We probably should just go ahead and Fatal Push the Munitions Expert. This also means that our Jace is a lot worse here. Alright. So, based on hand construction, I think we're just going to Cling to Dust something. Actually, yeah, hold on. We got to exile 5 cards, so we'd have one. We wouldn't even have enough. Wow. Alright. So maybe we are supposed to just play Jace and Brainstorm then, and then just let it die. I don't like that plan, but I think it's the only one we got. We could also just bounce the Goblin Chieftain and make them replay it, but I don't think I like that either. I think we just need to get ahead on cards. All right, so Force is really bad and Drown's bad. So this way we'll shuffle away the Force of Negation here, and the opponent will get to kill the Jace, but the Jace will have gained us a little bit of life, so I guess it could be worse. And then next turn we can push the Goblin Chieftain and hopefully kill something else. We know our opponent has a Goblin Matron in hand. This is a really rough matchup in general, and especially since we're not playing Plague Engineers with this build. Really rough matchup. Because they just have so many value cards. All of their goblins are like 2-for-1s. Although if they're playing Metallic Mimic, like that card's really bad. So maybe... Okay, they're going to kill us and deal a little bit of damage to the Jace, or kill the Jace and deal a little bit of damage to us. Phrase that improperly. All right, and I guess we'll just pass. The Goblin Chieftain doesn't give the opponent or the cards that our opponent has any specific buffs. We can kill the Goblin Chieftain and the Metallic Mimic all at the same time. Opponent tar fires us. That's really not scary at all. So we can push plus drown what our opponent's plays. Opponent has a Ringleader. That's really rough, and it's uncounterable. All right, so we will push the... Oh, wait, we gotta... Hold on. We gotta go ahead and get black here. Push the Metallic Mimic, and then drown the lock. I guess it didn't really matter, but we would need to do this anyway. Sure. All right, so opponent Ringleaders, and they reveal 4 goblins. Okay, so we know our opponent's hand is Matron plus these plus 1 unknown card. I don't really see how we can win from here. Kaya's Guile. Sure. We can't cast, unfortunately, Drown of the Lock and Kaya's Guile here. Pretty sure we're just dead here. Like, this seems like a horrible matchup. All right, we'll take 2. This is another Ringleader. Oh, it's a Murderous Redcap. All right, well, I guess we're going to... make our opponent sacrifice, and we'll gain some life here. Seems really bad, though. All right. So the Murderous Redcap is on the board. Yeah, really, really bad here. Okay. Guess we'll pass. Skirk Prospector is a good one. I guess we'll counter it because our opponent can go infinite. Opponent just goes to combat, which is fine. We're just getting our faces beat in here. This is really rough. Yeah, we go to 6 here. Like, I mean, our opponent's got us dead here. Like, are they going to Matron here? Matron, sure. Getting Skirk Prospector, they're going for the combo again next turn. All right, we will, I guess, just get... it doesn't really matter, I guess. We'll get the second white source so we can Verdict, theoretically, but we'll get rid of our opponent's Tar Fire. Trying to think of like what series of cards gets us back in this game. I don't even know. Certainly not. Well, certainly not that, I would say, but so we can do this. Get a Plains. And we need Kaya's Guile here is the only card that lets us survive. Yeah, that's not enough. Okay. Sideboard. Aether Gust is very good. Honestly, Ashiok's not the worst. Our opponent has a lot of cards that make them search, and this shuts them all off. Supreme Verdict's pretty good, and Engineered Explosive's pretty good. So, like, these are the cards that I like in this matchup. Cling to Dust is very weak. I'm not sure exactly how many we're supposed to cut, but we could theoretically cut all of them. And Force Negation's also really bad. So these are cards that I for sure am not a big fan of. On the same, like, Cryptic Command's good at specific things, but not everything. So maybe we can cut one of them too and just go like this. Aether Gust is nice against Cavern things, and it buys us a little bit extra time to find some spot removal, but like cards like Path to Exile are really bad in this matchup also. It's just really, really rough. We don't have any specific game plan here that's really any good against them. Honestly, just playing the Zerda might be better in this matchup than most things. Like just getting a 3-3 on board and trying to kill all of our opponent's stuff. Sure, like, you know, what are we really going to do here? This hand is better than most. It's got quite a bit of action, and an Ashiok on 3 might really shut off a lot of the stuff that the opponent's trying to do. So we can island into Thought Scour ourselves, especially if the opponent's going to mulligan. Seems pretty good. My opponent's down to 5. The best thing that we could possibly imagine is that our opponent over sideboards. We want our opponent to be bringing in like Leyline of the Void and Thought Seizes and stuff like that, because all of those cards are significantly worse against us than just like Goblin Ringleader. Goblin Ringleader is the card that we, plus Cavern of Souls, is what we can't beat. So we want to avoid our opponent getting into a position where they can do that. All right, we will Thought Scour ourselves just to fake to the opponent that we might have Force Negation in our deck, which we don't. Okay. Milled over Esper Charm, which is not the worst, but it's certainly not the best. We can get a black source with this to Fatal Push something if they main phase like a Snoop. Conspicuous Snoop. Opponent is only at 5 cards, and they kept a 1-lander. Wow. All right. So we'll get blue-black here. And then I think I'm pretty happy just slamming an Ashiok here. All right, we got a Creeping Tar Pit after that. That's pretty good. And then I guess the question is whether or not we want to mill ourselves or mill our opponent or do nothing. I think doing nothing is probably correct for the first one. So the opponent can put like a 1-drop in and then attack it, and we just want it to stick around because milling ourselves doesn't really do much. Milling our opponent does even less, especially now that we took out all of the Cling to Dusts in this matchup. Because the opponent doesn't really do anything with their graveyard, like at all. Also shuts off some of our opponent's land drops, which is kind of cool. All right, we'll just play Creeping Tar Pit and pass. If the opponent goes to Violin something with the Aether Vial, we can use Kaya's Guile in response, or we can Fatal Push it. Yeah, so it looks like they are going to do that. So I think I'm going to Kaya's Guile in response. I'm going to have our opponent sacrifice their creature, and we'll make a 1/1 to block. What's nice is that Ashiok means that we can't just die to the combo. Man, opponent has lands that don't require being tapped. It's kind of rough for us. All right, Metallic Mimic. Plus they must have a 3-drop of some sort. I think we're supposed to just let Ashiok take 2 here, because then we can set up our blocks a little bit better next turn. All right, so I guess the big question here is whether or not we want to minus on the Aether Vial or not. I don't think we do. I think this is probably fine. And the opponent's going to have to attack everything at this Ashiok, and then hopefully we can just play an Ashiok again next turn. All right, opponent's going to put in their 3-drop, which is a Grumgully. Okay. If our opponent can find a Skirk Prospector, they have the ability to combo off here, which is not great. So now we need to find Supreme Verdict. We need our opponent playing to the board here and then finding Supreme Verdict. Opponent is thinking. There's a lot to keep in mind here. But you can just see that like our cards aren't lining up particularly well. Like we're bringing in Ashiok, which does nothing except for turn off Matron and the Harbinger, and it's just not good. All right, doesn't look like we're dead here, so this is good. Okay, opponent's attacking Teferi with both of these. Okay, so that means we can just throw the Spirit in front of one of them and just soak up a little bit of damage. This is good for us so far. We're not just dead. I don't believe our opponent can kill us at instant speed, so I think end of turn we can. If our opponent plays a Skirk Prospector, they can kill us at instant speed. Yeah. Okay. So now we just can't untap, because if our opponent puts in a... Yeah, so now we have to kill the Grumgully in response. Oh, actually, we have to kill the Skirk Prospector in response, because it's going to come back in with a 1/1 counter on it. So the opponent can make infinite mana. The opponent can make infinite mana either way, so we have to kill the Skirk Prospector then. Alright, we'll do that. Sure, Murderous Redcap. Okay, so that kills us. Yep. So now they just sacrifice the Murderous Redcap, and then it'll come back with 1/1 counters on it. Yep, and then we're just dead. All right, everyone, welcome to round number 3. We are 1-1. We lost the die roll and have a very interesting hand here. So this hand is really, really good if it can hit land drops. Otherwise, it's questionable. But I think I'm going to keep it. I think this hand has enough upside where we can keep this with double force negation. Against Godless Shrine, I have no idea what this means. Inquisition of Kozilek. All right. So probably fine that we kept the 7. It's probably better than a 6, even though it's heavy on lands. Godless Shrine. Is this like some sort of Esper Shadow or Mardu Shadow deck? I know those were popular for a little while. Taking a Force of Negation is super weird. I don't understand that at all. What deck... It has to be some sort of combo deck then, right? Like, why would you take Force Negation? I have another one. Is this Stoneforge Mystic? Oh, it's a Bitter Blossom. Yeah, I guess we're going to force this pitching Supreme Verdict. All right, so it's some sort of black-white tokens deck. Kind of cool. Kind of cool, kind of cool. Esper Charm can deal with Bitter Blossom, but that's not really in our colors right now. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. Man, black-white tokens. This deck used to be a pretty solid player back in the day, so Spectral Procession is fine. Probably should have pitched, you know, basically any spell except for the one that we did. But that's, you know, you live and learn. Take the 3 damage here, and then we'll probably Esper Charm at the end of the turn here. Auriok Champion. Alright, that's fine. Relatively. Alright, we'll get blue-white here. And Esper Charm. We can also make our opponent discard, but I think we need to... Our way of winning this is that we have to hit our land drops. Playing Jace here doesn't accomplish terribly too much. Like, we could plus it and it'll go down to 1, but I don't think that's where we want to be. I think there's a chance that if we can untap here without our opponent playing like a giant haymaker here, and we can like drown the lock plus Thought Scour or something like that, we might be in okay position, but we shall see. Not super upset about just taking a little bit of damage here. All right, and then the opponent's passing, so we will just Thought Scour, and we'll probably wind up Fatal Pushing. Oh, another Thought Scour, okay. And another Thought Scour, okay. So we're dumping quite a bit of cards here. We got 1 Frantic Inventory in the yard, which will help with specific draws, or a few specific draws, I guess. All right, so now we can put one of these cards on top of our library and brainstorm it with Jace. We could just pass the turn again. I think I like just passing the turn again, and then next turn we can Jace plus hold up, draw on the lock. We unfortunately probably are going to have to take 3 damage here, which is fine. End of turn, I might bounce a Spirit and draw a card, just so that way we can brainstorm with Jace without it dying. If our opponent doesn't play anything. That's fine. Okay, opponent's not doing anything again, so I think we are just going to Cryptic Command, return a Spirit, and draw a card. And then based on what happens here, we will theoretically put a card on top of our library. What's this? They're going to Path to exile their own Spirit. Okay, this is fine. All right, so now we will play a Jace. And we will brainstorm, I guess. And then we can put a card on top of our library after taking a look at what we draw. Frantic Inventory. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is very good. So we will put the Fatal Push and this Swamp. No, I guess we're fine with the Swamp. So we'll put these 2 back. Play this, and then we will plan on getting Frantic Inventory here and putting one of these cards on top of our library. So we can certainly take 2 on the Jace here, that's fine. And depending on what our opponent does here, we can adjust our plans. If our opponent does nothing, we will probably still Frantic Inventory. All right, so we will, I guess, just get Esper Charm on top. Just get a little bit of card advantage here, and then draw a couple. Kaya's Guile is very good, tier 2. All right, we will begin by brainstorming. Put back second Jace and Field of Ruin. Play this. And we will, I guess, just pass the turn here. All right, and we'll see how our opponent attacks here. All right, so they're going to send both at the Jace. So we can go blue, black, and we can drown this spirit in the lock. And then we can make our opponent sacrifice a creature and gain 4 life. So we'll go white, black, and this one here, sure. If our opponent can... Okay, our opponent's going to look like they're going to make instant speed tokens. What is this? Oh, raise the alarm? Or secure the wastes? Sure. Okay, so our opponent's going to secure the wastes. That's fine. We will just get a plains here, and then we'll frantic inventory. And then we'll just verdict. Sounds good. Opponent gains some life, which is fine. That's not the axis that this game's being played on. Our Jace is unfortunately down, but we can make our opponent discard their hand, and then we can verdict. So we will have our opponent discard 2 cards. A couple of Path to Exiles, and Supreme Verdict. All right, so now we just need to resolve this Shark Typhoon here probably, and then we're going to be good. Wow. All right, that was a really good draw. The only thing that's good about this is that we have Creeping Tar Pit. So we can just push the Vampire and then kill the Sorin with this Creeping Tar Pit. But still, you know, very good from our opponent here. All right, we will get an island here, and then we'll go black, blue, blue. Go after the Sorin here. I thought we had 1 more mana because my plan here was to get Zerda and then play it, but obviously we can't do that, so I am going to just go ahead and get Zerda, though. Another Sorin, okay. See what the opponent does with this one. Maybe they'll do the same thing. All right, they're just going to plus it, which is fine. All right, and then we here, I think, are going to just attack it with the Creeping Tar Pit and play Zerda. The Shark Typhoon is probably would still be lights out, but this manages our opponent's board a little bit. And just playing Shark Typhoon and passing and just hoping that we can win is not, I don't think, the greatest odds of making sure that we have really good top decks. So I think I like this. We're just playing stuff that can attack our opponent's walkers, because we could get in real trouble if our opponent played like a Liliana or something, or maybe some other card that I can't really think of right now. But we're set up well now to manage our opponent's board. Like attacking this Zerda at stuff is very solid theoretically. Oh, Kaya's Guile. All of them. All modes on this Kaya's Guile. And they get to exile our yard. I think we have to force this. Man, that feels bad, but I think we do have to force it. There's just too many things that our opponent would get there. So that was probably the best draw our opponent could have had. And, you know, it was almost a little too much for us to handle. So unfortunately, we did have to get rid of that Shark Typhoon. Man, all right. Well, and we don't have any of our three... Yeah, we don't have any of our three... Oh, did I tap too many mana? What did I do? 1, 2, 3. Oh, this costs less. This costs 2 less to activate. So there is some extra text on the Zerda. That's interesting. I was gonna say, I was like, I think we tapped too much mana, but it didn't even occur to me that. So I guess this works for EE as well as Creeping Tar Pit. That's kind of cool. So I guess I punted the last turn. I should have played the Zerda first, and then I should have activated the Creeping Tar Pit, and then we would still have the Shark Typhoon in hand, because I could have hardcasted it. Wow. All right, so certainly not great on my part. We have so many good draws off the top, though. Another Sorin, okay. Well, yeah. Fortunately, we have ways to mitigate that, but man, this could have been a lot easier, this match. Wow. All right. Island. Okay. Getting in there with the Tar Pit again. Sorin and our opponent. Three Sorins in a row for the opponent. Scariest draw the opponent could have is Secure the Wastes. Opponent concedes. Wow. All right. Well, we did punt. Okay, we were drawing Cling to Dust. Okay, so we eventually would have gotten there for sure. All right. So in this matchup, Path to Exile is really, really bad. We don't want to ever be pathing their tokens. So that's definitely the worst card, I think. Engineered Explosives is very good. Supreme Verdict, obviously very good. Our opponent probably has Lingering Souls, too, which is something to keep in mind. Brutality seems bad. Flusterstorm is probably... I mean, all of their good cards are instants. So I guess we can cut these for sure. And we can maybe cut a Fatal Push also. Same reason, I just don't like spot removal. I think I'd rather try to counter their thing. This is like Spell Pierce in the matchup, which is probably fine. I don't like Ashiox. I don't like Aether Gust. They're white-black. Yeah, I guess we'll just go like this. I don't really like Collective Brutality either. I don't like proactively taking anything out of their hand. I'd rather just Verdict. All right, Zerda. This hand's really good against Thought Seize, and our opponent is a Thought Seize deck. All right, everyone, I'm back. Sorry about that. I have some important calls going on. I'm in the process of currently trying to buy a house, and there's a lot of things going on with that. So getting calls left and right regarding that. Looking promising on the house that I have an offer submitted on, though. So just updating you with why it was a 1 to 2 minute break there. All right, opponent goes for the Bitter Blossom, which is, you know, rough, but there's not much we can do about it. So we just got to draw an Esper Charm to blow it up. Go ahead and get our Godless Shrine because of the way that our hand is set up. Supreme Verdict is obviously the best answer to that. Opponent's gonna, you know, get to make their Bitter Blossom tokens. The other thing is that most likely our opponent doesn't really have a removal in their deck anymore, so if we can get a Shark up there, the fairies can't really attack well into Sharks, and maybe they'll kill themselves with their Bitter Blossom. Another Bitter Blossom, wow, okay. So that's certainly scary. The only upside is that we got Supreme Verdicts and the ability to loop them, so we just have to be a little careful about our life total, but we might be able to have our opponent kill themselves with their own Bitter Blossoms. Alright, I guess we're just going to play an island here and Frantic Inventory plus push this first Fairy Rogue, because that'll save us a bit of damage in the long term. I think we're like very much on the plan of our opponent killing themselves with their Bitter Blossoms here. Combining their mana that deals themselves a little bit of damage. We only have to survive 7 turns with our opponent, hurting themselves every turn. Lingering Souls, okay. Another Supreme Verdict, okay. Sure, so opponent's got some spirits here. We have a Kaya's Guile, which is actually very good. We will play a Jace and plus the Jace, targeting ourselves, looking for a white mana. And our opponent hopefully will attack it. Alright, so we will put Thought Scour on the bottom of our library. We need a white mana to cast our Supreme Verdicts. Opponent is certainly hurting themselves with their Bitter Blossom. There's a chance they might just go after us. They might just ignore the Jace here. But with the multiple verdicts plus the ability to put verdicts back on top of our library, hopefully we can outrace them. But we'll get to Brainstorm here with the Jace, which is what we were trying to do all along. Especially if we can Brainstorm plus Verdict here, and then be able to untap and Brainstorm again. Very, very favorable, I believe. Alright, so we will draw. Oh, this hand's very good for this kind of purpose. Alright, so we will Thought Scour and Island to the bot, or shuffle them in, and then we'll just Verdict here. I suppose we want the Hallowed Fountain. Actually, I guess that's the only thing we could have gotten, so good thing we did that. Alright, and then we'll Verdict the first time. Then next turn we can play the Creeping Tar Pit, and we can start getting in there with Sharks. So certainly putting our opponent on a clock here, between their own Bitter Blossoms as well as us having Creeping Tar Pit, and them still having really awkward lands. So like another Lingering Souls is fine. So we'll play the Creeping Tar Pit, and we will Brainstorm, and we'll put these two back and pass the turn. We don't need to Verdict here. We can just Cryptic Command or Kaya's Guile, or Drown in the Loch plus Kaya's Guile. We just don't want to lose to something fancy off the top. So we'll see where our opponent's attacking with all these things. Us. Oh, so Jace, us, Jace, us. Okay. So I guess Jace is down. That's fine. See what the opponent does here. Rest in peace. Okay. Do we care about that? I guess we care about it to some extent, so I'll just counter it. Alright, and then here we will have our opponent sacrifice, and we'll just gain some life, so that way we can't just randomly die. And then we'll just get in with the Creeping Tar Pit over 2 turns and hopefully just win. Hopefully the opponent doesn't have Path to Exile still in their deck. If they do, this could get a little iffy. Fatal Push? Oh, no. That's... I mean, it's not disaster, but, like, why do they have that in their deck? Okay. Alright. So now our opponent, unfortunately, is going to get in with the Shambling Vent, which isn't great, but we do have a high life total here. So we'll see what the opponent does. I think their best bet here is to probably suit up the Shambling Vent. Oh, creatures they control gain... Wow, gain Death Touch and Lifelink. Really, really good. So they'll get to gain 5 with the Vault of the Archangels. Wild. Okay. I guess we'll get a white source here. Yeah, we'll just get the Hallowed Fountain. Play that tapped. Creatures gain lifelink. Okay. We will Supreme Verdict. And hold up our Field of Ruin on the Shambling Vent. Or on the Vault of the Archangels. Actually, a little unsure what I'm going to do here. Opponent's going to 5. They got Lingering Souls in their yard. Gideon's fine. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to... So our opponent's at 4, and now what we're going to do is we're going to blow up the Vault of the Archangel. And then we can tap down our opponent's creatures next turn, and they'll just die to their own Bitter Blossom, or at least that's the plan. Alright, so there's Mystic Sanctuary, which is nice. Alright, so we can just Mystic Sanctuary, put the Supreme Verdict on top in case something goes horribly wrong. But I believe we should now just win to our opponent killing themselves on Bitter Blossoms. Our opponent would have to draw a life gain spell of some sort here. And the way that we beat the Shambling Vent is that with this Cryptic command, we use the modes. Tap our opponent's creatures, bounce the Shambling Vent. Or if the opponent animates the Shambling Vent, then it makes everything a little bit easier. Okay, opponent draws a card, that's fine. Yeah, this makes it easier too. Sure. All right, so Sorum, Solemn Visitor. We will just counter that and tap all of our opponent's stuff. Counter target spell. Tap all stuff our opponents control. Perfect. And then our opponent will die to their own Bitter Blossom. Nice. All right, 2-1. I'll see you at the beginning of round 3. Or round 4. Sorry, yeah, 2-1. See you at the beginning of round 4. There we go. All right, everyone, welcome to round number 4. We are 2-1, looking to get a 3-2 or possibly a 4-1, which would be ideal. And this is a great hand. We'll definitely keep this. Unsure what I want to lead on, so I think I'll lead on this Flooded Strand. There's a very good chance that we'll fire off a Cling to Dust because we have 2, but unsure. We have Force Negation pitching Shark Typhoon if we'd like. Or we could pitch Thought Scour. Really, Not exactly sure which one of those is better, but we'll certainly have the card advantage with Cling to Dust. Okay, the opponent is playing Tron, which is definitely probably the kind of deck where we're supposed to just immediately force negation this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Watery Grave, and I'm going to Cling to Dust our own land. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to possibly draw a bad blue card. Cryptic Commando, though, is not a bad blue card. So now I guess the question is whether or not we want to force pitching Thought Scour or force pitching Shark Typhoon. And I do think it's really close. I think we're going to wind up pitching the Thought Scour. All right, we draw Jace the Mind Sculptor, which is interesting. We are probably going to wind up clinging something to Dust here or cycling Shark Typhoon, so I'm going to play this untapped because our best play might actually just be to cycle Shark Typhoon here. We shall see. Chromatic Star. That'll resolve. That's fine. Yeah, this is unfortunate. All right, so we will cling their Chromatic Star to Dust. See if we can draw a land here or force negation. Draw Thought Scour. Okay, so now we will Thought Scour ourselves. Unfortunately, we just hit a land. Okay, so the Ancient Stirrings will resolve. Hopefully they miss on their Tron land. Best draw is obviously Field of Ruin off the top. We fortunately still have 2 Field of Ruins in our deck. The fact that they're thinking this long leads me to believe that they do not have Tron. Or a way to set it up next. Okay, so they have an Expedition map, so it's going to take an additional turn for them to get Tron online. All right, we did draw Drown in the Loch, though, which is actually excellent, and we can counter an Expedition map. It's like the only time Drown in the Loch is a good draw. All right, so we will do that, and we will counter this. So we'll go black and blue. And now we need to draw a land. Unfortunately, our opponent had Sylvan Scrying after all that. Really rough. All right. And they find Urza's Power Plant. Sure. And unfortunately, it's a Thought Scour, which bodes very badly for us. We'll mill ourselves. We found a land. All right, so we're not just dead, but it's not looking good for us. If we had a Cryptic Command there, we might have stood a shot, but now the opponent's going to get to resolve something like a Karn the Great Creator. And I think that'll probably be it for us. All right, we can beat... I think we could beat a Karn the Great Creator. I'm not exactly sure. It'll be iffy. There's a chance, actually, I should have cycled the Shark Typhoon to try to find Force Negation for this. It's actually probably exactly what I should have done. Choose Relic of Progenitus. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's also fine. Okay. Why wouldn't they pop it first? They have to pop it now. I don't know. Tron players are not really known for their tight play. Okay, but they found an Emrakul the Promised End. I guess that's actually really bad with Relic. So... Sure. Because now they're still quite a few mana away from that. I don't know. Interesting. All right. We'll just do this, I guess, now. Field of Ruin. Drown in the Loch. Okay. Probably the worst draw here. We can just hold up Cryptic Command here. think I like that play. We can attack the Karn. So the Karn's going to die if it goes and searches for something, which is good for us. Opponent has access to 10 mana this turn. Yeah, I mean, that's really not great. We can counter it. We can bounce one of our own lands, which is probably better than drawing a card. So they'll probably go after 2 lands. We'll counter this, and we'll return one of our lands to our hand. So that way we can definitely resolve Jace next turn. But not looking great. So we'll counter this and return this to our hand. So that way we can still resolve Jace, but... Opponent just ticks up the Karn, that's fine. Kaya's Guile, one of the worst draws in the whole deck. Alright, so we will go Watery Grave, and then we're looking for Force and Negation. There's the Field of Ruin. Alright, so if we can survive one more turn, we might have a shot. So we'll put back Kaya's Guile and Esper Charm. This is to play around if the opponent has main deck Thought Not Seers. I'm doing it this way. Hopefully the opponent's out of gas. That would be ideal. Maybe they'll just have all forests in hand. Maybe. So look at our post board. Okay, so the opponent's just going to go find something. So we'll bring in the Ashiok and probably the Surgical Extractions post board. This matchup's not as great as some of the other blue-white control variants. We just don't have good closing speed. We have a lot of good removal, but we don't really have very good closing speed. What did our opponent find? They went and found Sundering Titan. Okay. Well, can we just pack it up after Sundering Titan? Yeah, we can just pack it up now. So the opponent's going to get to cast Sundering Titan. I don't want to show that we have Field of Ruin, especially if we can't win this game. So going to just pack it up and we'll move on to the next game. All right, so we want the Ashioks. Ashioks are good. And we like Surgical Extraction a lot in this matchup. There's a chance that Flusterstorm is better than some of the other stuff we have. So like these 5 are okay. Flusterstorm is going to get to tag all of our opponents' their 4 search effects, plus it gets to tag... what's that card called? Veil of Summer. So definitely Supreme Verdict out, and definitely Fatal Push out. So these are the ones that are like the easiest to cut. Would also like to cut Kaya's Guile. So definitely want to cut all of these cards here. Does anything else we have here seem like it might be slightly better than what we got there? The Engineered Explosives might be able to do something. It's probably a little bit better than Kaya's Guile. The rest I'm not really sure about. Eliminate doesn't do anything. Aether Gust doesn't really do anything. I get maybe Aether Gust is better than the last Kaya's Guile. So maybe these 7 for these 7 here. But that's really rough anyway. Not a big fan of Aether Gusting one of our opponent's like 12 green spells they have in the deck. Alright, we'll show Zerda. This hand's got the Field of Ruin, and we're on the play, so we'll definitely keep. I believe I'm going to go with Basic Island here. I want to be able to counter a... oh, maybe not, actually. There's nothing our opponent would play on 1 that I think I'd want to Flusterstorm. Yeah, I think I'm okay with this. And also, we got to get blue anyway for Archmage's Charm, so sure. We'll get probably blue, black, because we cut a lot of our white cards. Actually, we cut a lot of our black cards, too. We're mostly mono blue. Maybe we'll get blue-white because Zerda's white, I guess. And we still have the Path to Exiles in the deck, but we've cut almost all the black cards except for like Esper Charm. All right, Chromatic Sphere's fine. We'll get, yeah, so we have Esper Charm is really the only black card in the deck, and Drown in the Loch, which is also not good in this matchup. So we'll get Hallowed Fountain, sure. All right, Force Negation's a good draw. So we are going to tentatively Frantic Inventory here and then Field of Ruin next turn. So the opponent played the Mine second, so that's definitely the one I'm going to go after. Also, in general, you want to go after your opponent's non-tower, because that means on the turn that they try to assemble Tron again, they're going to actually have less mana up. All right, so this is good. We will Frantic Inventory, finding Drown in the Loch, which is not great. All right, another island's good, though. So we'll do all this, and then we will, I guess... I don't want to get a black source. Maybe we'll just get a blue source and hold the Drown in the Loch for a little while. So we'll go ahead and we'll blow up the mine here, and we're just going to get an island. The Drown in the Loch has almost no value, and I want to hold up Flusterstorm here. So there we go, perfect. So we'll actually just counter this using the Flusterstorm. So Flusterstorm did, I mean, certainly not clutch, but it came in handy. It was certainly better than Kaya's Guile or something like that. So it worked out pretty well, especially if the opponent goes and plays a land here. That's fine. Sure. All right, and they did have Power Plant. All right, so it's a good thing we did force when we did. That's good. All right, and we will just play this island here and slam a Jace the Mind Sculptor, picking up some card advantage for our Force Negation to be good. And then next turn, we can find our black source, or we can put one of our cards on top of our library. Found another Field of Ruin. That's a very good draw. So we'll put back Thought Scour. Actually, no, let's just put back Polluted Delta and Field of Ruin. That's fine. So this way we can force pitching Drown in the Loch, and then we can blow up another one of our opponent's lands next turn. The hope, obviously, here is that our opponent doesn't get to Tron again. Yeah, we'll force that. Force that pitching Drown in the Loch. See if the opponent has... Nope, okay. Perfect. All right, awesome. And they're passing. Perfect. So we unfortunately have another awkwardness coming up here where we're going to draw Field of Ruin for the turn, but we don't have the ability to Field of Ruin and Archmage's Charm in the same turn unless we want to go get our fourth island, and I really don't want to get our fourth island. All right, so we will put back Path to Exile and Godless Shrine, and we'll play the Field of Ruin, and we will pass. I think our tentative plan is going to be to still blow up the power plant and then just get a swamp. All right, our opponent cycles Wilt, which is fine. And then during draw step, we will blow up the power plant. And I think we're just going to go ahead and get swamp. There's a chance that we get kind of wrecked here, but I think getting the black mana is important. We do have Esper Charms and stuff like that in the deck. And we're going to get to draw some cards with Frantic Inventory. Okay, the opponent now has played all of their forests, most likely. and they are just going to cast a Thragtusk. Okay. Another Frantic Inventory is pretty cool, though. Alright, there's a Plains. Start by brainstorming here. We have just way too much going on here. Alright, Teferi's cool. Yeah, almost all of this stuff is awesome. So we do actually want to get rid of this Thragtusk. We actually don't have a good way to do it right now, which is really awkward. And we might wind up just losing the Jace because of it. So what we can do here is we can... We can just fetch and play Zerda here, and then just trade off the Thragtusk and the Zerda. As awkward as that is, that actually might be the right play here. So we can go get Godless Shrine, and then we can 2, 3, get Zerda, and then just play Zerda, and trade it off and then steal the token maybe. This way we still have Force of Negation up. Wow, really awkward. We do have 2 Path to Exiles in the deck, but that's really our only removal, and we shuffled one away. But opponent's still very far off Tron, which is nice. So if we have to force here, I'm not really sure exactly what we're going to pitch, but I think we'll figure something out here. All right. So the Zerda is running in front of the Thragtusk. And then I think our tentative plan is going to be to steal the Beast or just bounce it with the Jace. Bouncing a Thragtusk with the Jace was like just not really an option due to how the card works. Yeah, this is worth forcing. All right, so we'll force this pitching Esper Charm because we have other card advantage engines in hand right now. All right, Ancient Stirrings happens. They just found another tower. Interesting. Okay, so they're still very far off of Tron, which is good. They only have 1 card in hand. Ashiok's a very good draw tier, too. All right, so we can just bounce this. Inventory. Okay, and then we can hold up the ability to put a Force Negation on top of our library if we need to. And we'll play our Ashiok here. And we'll start milling our opponent because there's definitely value into putting our opponent on some sort of clock, and Ashiok is legitimately a clock in this matchup. They also only have so many like Ulamogs and stuff like that, and there's only so many cards that beat us, and milling them is actually relevant in this matchup, which is kind of funny. It's like the only matchup where that's the case, but... Alright, this is a Karn, so I think we will go ahead and make that play that I suggested before, which is we get one of our Mystic Sanctuaries here. We put the Force Negation on top. Yes. And then we cling to Dust our opponent's Chromatic Star, drawing the Force Negation, and then we will force this pitching. I guess at this point we can just pitch to Fairy. We don't need another win con. Alright, so we untap then. And we can brainstorm. Put back these 2. Play that. And mill our opponent. We probably aren't going to need to use... Alright, so there's the other... Ulamog is down, which is nice. We're most likely not going to need to use the Surgical Extraction, so I don't want to show our opponent the card if we don't have to. Sphere's fine. Alright, we'll untap. We will put a Frantic Inventory on top of the library because we have so many in our yard already. Just use it as card advantage. Brainstorm. Put back Surgical and a Thought Scour, I guess. Play a land. Mill our opponent. So now the opponent right now is just spewing extra information. I don't know how our opponent would survive from this position, or the number of cards it would take to get into it is just absolutely crazy. I guess Emrakul would be a start, but even Emrakul won't do enough. And now I guess the question is whether or not we want to put our opponent on a clock here, and I guess the answer is yes. So we'll just get the Shark Typhoon down. I guess Hallowed Fountain slightly better. All right, so it's 5-turn clock on the Shark Typhoon. We'll continue to brainstorm here. We want to hit our land drops. We'll put back Surgical and Thought Scour. And I guess we'll just play that. That's fine. And mill our opponent. And attack them for 5. Then we'll go to discard, and we will put, I guess, a Drown in the Loch in the graveyard. Sure, Wilt cycled, that's fine. Sure, the opponent can have a Chromatic Sphere, that's fine. Opponent found a mine. We'll just untap and go here. We'll Thought Scour our opponent. Take a look at the top of their library. It's going to be a mine. We'll leave that on top. Attack our opponent. Play a land and pass the turn. There actually might be some merit to not milling our opponent because of them having Emrakul, something I didn't consider at all, actually, which I definitely should have. So Emrakul is definitely the problematic card with the way that we've played this by milling our opponent, because our opponent right now has 3 types. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're one type away from casting Emrakul. Oblivion Stone. So we gotta definitely counter that. So we'll just force it to start. And then it might be worth eating types from our opponent's graveyard. So we'll Cling to Dust the Planeswalker. Another Cling to Dust, okay. We can Cling to Dust the... Actually, we should probably hold on dealing ourselves like infinite damage. All right. So we can make our opponent discard here. That might honestly be enough to just end the game here. And then I think, okay, so the opponent is just... So the opponent must have had Emrakul in hand, and that was it. All right, so Emrakul is the one card that we definitely didn't play around and need to think about for game 3. So we'll submit. There is definitely some merit to just Thought Scouring the opponent turn 1 if we can have a Surgical Extraction in our hand. I think we're going to have to mulligan any hand that doesn't have a interaction on turn turn 3, our opponent's turn 3. So that means that our hand would either have to have Force Negation or the Thought Scour Surgical Extraction, or maybe just an excellent combination of other cards, like maybe the Flusterstorm or an Ashiok, maybe. So it'd have to have something like that, or we'll throw back the 7. At 6, I think we're a little less able to do that kind of thing. But for 7, I don't want to keep a 7 that is like, you know, two Cryptic Commands, 3 lands, and like, you know, a Path to Exile or something like that. All right, so this hand is almost exactly that kind of hand I described. This hand draws cards, but it doesn't interact with our opponent. If our opponent just trons, we just lose. See what the opponent did. The opponent is mulliganing to 6. All right, we will also go to 6. This is definitely more like it. This is the kind of hand that can really nicely interact with what the opponent's trying to do. There's probably more merit to putting back the Path to Exile than anything else here. Like we want to get the Frantic Inventories online. We want to draw cards because we need to hit land drops. So I want to go 1, 2, and then Cryptic Command's just a good catch-all. So I guess we'll put the Path back. All right, Chromatic Star can resolve. That's fine. Surgical Extraction, okay. Ancient Stirrings. All right, I think I'm going to cling this one to Dust. Or not cling this to... I'm going to cling our opponent's thing to Dust and see what we draw, and that will inform our decision on what we want to do with this. So we'll eat that, draw an Esper Charm. So I think that's what we'll pitch with our Force Negation. So I do want to counter that. And now we really need to draw land. Land. Not great. All right, we're not dead yet because we have a really, really good 2 into 3, but so far this is a little rough. Okay, the opponent also doesn't have any more lands. So we have both us and our opponent keeping horrible hands. Another Surgical Extraction, okay. Force Negation unfortunately doesn't interact particularly well with that. Let's see. All right, the opponent's playing less lands than us, so theoretically we'll draw land before they do. It's not working out that way though. And we'll pitch the Shark Typhoon to most things. All right, that's not most things. They can have that. Land. Oh my gosh. All right, we will cling our own Polluted Delta to Dust. Miss on land. Okay. I guess we're gonna pitch the Shark Typhoon. Really awkward. All right, we'll force this. And I think we're going to pitch the Cryptic Command this time, because our plan is going to be to Thought Scour our opponent and Surgical Tron lands. All right, the opponent goes to discard. All right, we draw a land. Great. All right, so we will play this untapped. And we will Thought Scour our opponent here. All right, we hit Forest. So we actually can't Surgical basic Forest, but we can Surgical some of the other stuff that they have. So we'll pass. And I guess during draw step, we'll Surgical Chromatic Stars. Well, there's another Chromatic Star in the ER already. All right, so unfortunately we didn't hit a Tron land, which is actually kind of rough. So we'll just let this go, I guess. All right, they draw Chromatic Sphere, which is fine. And then we can play Ashiok next turn. So I guess maybe we do want to surgical something here. We'll surgical Karns. We just want to get rid of a lot of our opponent's win conditions. See what our opponent has. So they have a Karn in hand. They have multiple Sylvan Scryings, which we can turn off with the Ashiok, which is nice. And if we were to get rid of Karn the Great Creator, they have two other Karn the Great Creators. They have an Ulamog and an Emrakul. Okay. So I guess we want to... just chill on this for now, then. All right, Shark Typhoon. All right, the opponent has found their second Tron land, which is obviously not ideal. All right, we find a land, so that's good. So we can put Thought Scour on top of our library, and then we can draw it, and then we can hope to surgical a Tron land, or the third Tron land. It's like really awkward that's... Oh, we can't. We don't have enough blue sources to do this. I don't really know exactly how we want to continue this then. This seems fine to start. All right, so another mine's gone. Okay, Chromatic Star is fine. And we will get Hallowed Fountain, and we will cycle this Shark Typhoon. All right, Cryptic Command's really good. Awesome. All right. We will mill our opponent. It's another tower gone, so the opponent only has 2 towers left in their deck. And we can Cryptic Command something here if we need to. Opponent plays a forest, that's fine. Oblivion Stone. Alright, that's fine. And then I guess we'll plan on Thought Scouring our opponent here. Sanctum of Ugin. Alright. We will Frantic Inventory. There's a Force Negation. That's a good card too. Alright. Oh, Field of Ruin. Perfect. Alright, so now we can field one of these, and then we can... so we'll do this first to hopefully hit the opponent's last couple forests. Might not work, but okay. So we'll go ahead and blow up the power plant. And then we'll surgical the power plant. All right, cool. So the opponent only has 4 lands in their whole deck still, so that's good. All right. So that happens, and then we can pass the turn after we attack here. And like I said before, it's definitely worth just going after their library, because that's our win condition this game is to go after. So we got one after 2 more, so they only have 2 more lands in their whole deck. Cool. So now our opponent can do stuff, but they can't assemble Tron or anything like that. So I'll just let this resolve. That's fine. They only have 2 lands in their deck. It's fine. They can have their 5th land. We will... I guess just play something tapped. And inventory. Oh, there's another Ashiok. Perfect. Okay. His opponent will most likely concede to this other Ashiok. 2, 3. Ashiok. And that'll be it. Perfect. All right. 3-1. Go in for the 4-1. Apologize for a little shaky match playing there, but we'll make it up for it with tight play in the 5th. All right, everyone. Welcome to the 5th and final match. We are 3-1. We're looking for that sweet 4-1. We'll reveal our Zerda. Hope the opponent keeps a weird hand. This is a really awkward hand. Opponent begins with 7. All right, we'll keep this one for science. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to keep this one or mulligan this one. We certainly have interaction. Other than that, not really sure what we have in this hand, but it can be pretty much anything. We got quite a bit of other stuff going on. Opponent is going to get to take one of them. All right, so it's getting a little bit worse. Opponent's most likely playing Jund or Rock. The fact that it's Blooming Marsh almost certainly means that it's going to be Rock, which means that I guess almost our entire deck's really good against them. Fatal Push is a lot better than Path to Exile in this matchup, and one of the reasons why... wow, took in the Drown Lock. Okay. Maybe they just have more discard. That must be it. All right, so we'll just play Hallowed Fountain tapped and pass. This is a Dark Confidant. We could be in a little bit... Oh, it's Lantern. Oh my gosh. Wow, I haven't seen a Lantern deck in forever. Holy crap. All right. So we're going to draw a land. I don't know how they can ever beat some of the card advantage cards that we have in our deck. Like, actually, like literally just drawing... Our entire deck seems great against them. Sure. I have to remember some of my old play patterns. All right, Surgical Extraction is one of definitely the better cards against us. So that's for for sure. They put Inventor's Fair in their hand. I guess we'll pop that out. Another Ancient Stirrings is fine, especially since Surgical Extraction is one of their best cards against us. Goose is weird. All right, another Codex Shredder. Sure. This matchup is not about speed, so all I'm going to do is play out all my fetch lands because they'll come in handy later when the opponent's trying to lock us out of the game. I know, not like for a fact, but I know pretty much for sure that the opponent can't beat a bunch of cards like Mystic Sanctuary or things like that. Like we certainly have some cards that the opponent's going to have a lot of trouble beating. Ghost Quarter's fine. Goose is fine. Crucible of Worlds is fine. Sure. The opponent's going to try to get the Ghost Quarter thing going, which is, I guess pretty reasonable, but still. All right, so I guess we'll go after... We'll make our opponent sacrifice and start getting in there with a 1/1. Like, it is something, So we'll do that. Got the Scrybug there. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, and I create a 1/1. Black, white. This. Okay, Glimmer Void on top. That's fine. Sure. Sorry, the commentary on this is just not particularly, like, I don't even really know what exactly either of us are supposed to do in this match. Like, I'm just waiting for our, to find a cling to dust. And then once we cling to dust, like, you know, our opponent's not going to be able to do anything, basically. So opponent has no cards in hand. I mean, they take a fatal push here. Like, there's not really all that much else going on. All right, there's another Mystic Sanctuary, so that's worth weird. Okay. So we'll play that, and I guess Archmage's Charm. Make our opponent use the Codex Shredders more. Sure, they mill, or we mill. Surgical Extraction's pretty good. Alright, if they name Polluted Delta, they got us. Like, I didn't click fast through enough, and I don't really care, so. Yeah, sure, they name Polluted Delta, that's fine. That's not the axis that this game's going to be fought over. There we go, that's the one we want right there, Cling to Dust. And we can always path our own spirit if we ever want another land. Okay, opponent drew Surgical Extraction for the turn. They're going to Surgical or Archmage's Charm. It's the only Archmage's Charm in our whole deck. They get to shuffle away the Cling to Dust. That's the reason why they're doing that. Frantic Inventory is another good one. Alright, they mill our Frantic Inventory. That's fine. Alright, they're getting Pixis. That's reasonable, at least. Actually, Pixis is very good. Pixis is going to let them take... Yeah, maybe we should concede to that, actually. Alright. Yeah, I'll concede to the Pixis. That's fine. The Pixis can then exile our Cling to Dusts off the top, which is, you know, not great. Alright, so we get Ashiok's. We get the Collective Brutalities are probably fine. The Surgical Extractions are good. Engineered Explosives is excellent. Flusterstorm's probably fine. They're usually a war deck. Alright, and we can cut Fatal Pushes and Verdicts and Path to Exiles. and Kaya's Guiles. Alright, so we'll do that. Alright. Would like to go first. We have our Zerda. This hand's great. Keep it. All right, we'll let our opponent resolve this Gilded Goose, and then we can use our Collective Brutality escalated to get rid of it, which is kind of cool. Which will stop our opponent from, being able to cast something just absolutely crazy on turn 2. So we'll get Watery Grave, and then we will Brutality escalating, pitching the Mystic Sanctuary. So that, black, this, and we'll discard the Mystic Sanctuary. Our opponent has Gaddock Teague. Wow. All right. So maybe a little too soon on the Collective Brutality. That's all right. We'll find something else to do here. Grove of the Burnwalls doesn't even cast it. Okay. The opponent takes a Cling to Dust, which is fine. Grove of the Burn Willows, okay. And Codex Shredder, sure. Yeah, opponent says they really needed that goose. Yeah, I agree. Opponent's got the Academy Ruins, and they Thought Seize us, which is fine. Another Codex Shredder is fine. Land. Alright, it's tapped land, but it is a land. Possibly should have just picked up our companion the last turn. Alright, they mill us. That's fine. They mill us. That's fine. Surgical Archmage's Charm, that's fine. It's the only one in our deck. It's probably worth Field of Ruining our opponent here at the end step. Okay, opponent concedes. Perfect. Alright, and game 3. We know that our opponent has Geese and Gaddock Teague. We have Collective Brutality to kill the Gaddock Teague, and I think that's probably our best bet. It's certainly better than Fatal Push in like a vacuum because we can get all kinds of stuff with it. We also have Jace to bounce things, but I guess Teague is really their big thing. I guess also something that we should keep in mind, and I totally forgot about the first game, was that we could have started beating down with the Zerda that we had in our sideboard, but the opponent could have found something at any point for that. So that wasn't exactly, where I was thinking that the hand would go. All right, well, we got, this is certainly action. Like if this can't beat what our opponent's trying to do, then, that sucks. But I think this is a relatively good opening 7 against like most things. The number of things the opponent would have to beat this, I think, is pretty high. Inquisition's fine. Yeah, we'll just get a white source here. All right, we got a Codec Shredder. Drowning the Lock's pretty cool. All right, I guess we'll just set up for that, because I'm assuming the opponent's gonna drown the Lock or start, shredding themselves. I'm surprised they didn't shred themselves there, actually. All right, I got a Crucible of Worlds. That's fine. Do we want to cycle a Typhoon? I don't think so. Inventory is a good card. All right. Yeah, we'll just play an island, I guess, and pass. If our opponent doesn't do anything, we can consider making a 1/1. We can also consider just casting Frantic Inventory. There's a lot of things we can do here. All right, opponent mills an Inquisition. Ancient Stirrings. That's fine. We'll let that resolve, and we'll counter whatever they cast with it. Academy Runes. Okay, that doesn't even count. Sure. All right, this does count, so we will counter this. They can put it on top of their library, but that's fine, I guess. Certainly slows them down. Force Negation is a really good draw, too. Just shock that in, plan on playing a 2/2, and pass. All right, Inventor's Fair is a good draw from the opponent. It's fine. Oh, they took our Collective Brutality. That's interesting. Wow, what does that mean? They must have an instant or source, or they're planning on resolving a Gaddock Teague. Oh, a Goblin Engineer. Okay. It's cool. Alright, and then they can sacrifice an artifact, return artifact with 3 from the graveyard to the battlefield. Alright, so they're going to put a Lantern in the graveyard. Interesting. Okay. Make a 2/2 Shark. Oh, Cling to Dust. Excellent. All right. Oh, and a Jace. All right, so we can Jace to bounce the Goblin Engineer. We could also just hold up Cling to Dust. We can main phase Frantic Inventory and hold up Cling to Dust. I think I like that the best of all the options that we came up with here. Field of Ruin's really good too. All right. I guess it's less good with Crucible of Worlds, but I guess I'm the most excited about the fact that we're gonna have a fifth land. All right, they're milling themselves. Sure. All right, Lantern of Insight is in the yard. So sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact. So when they tap this, that's when we get to do the thing. This is fine. They find Ensnaring Bridge. Okay. That's not the axis that I think I want to fight this on, so we'll let that resolve. That's fine. Opponent's going to have to sacrifice an artifact to get the Goblin Engineer to work, which is kind of cool. So we'll hopefully be able to leverage that in a very positive way. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll cast a Jace the Mind Sculptor. And we'll put back, I guess, Godless Shrine and Plains. Play a land and pass the turn. And we'll go for a Cling the Dust here when the opponent tries to put back a Lantern of Insight into the play. Interesting that the opponent decided to not do anything here. All right, the opponent's got an Inventor's Fair. We will force a negation the Pithing Needle that they try to cast here. Or I guess they can, yeah, they'll play the land for the turn and then cast Pithing Needle, sure. All right, so we will force that, pitching Shark Typhoon. All right, and then we will get our Mystic Sanctuary. We'll put Drown the Lock, I guess, on top. And then we'll Frantic Inventory, make the opponent mill that. Sure. So they mill it again. Frantic Inventory happens. Sure. Another inventory. Okay. We will begin by brainstorming. Multiple surgical extractions. This is very good. We'll go put back a couple of lands, and then we will surgical Lantern of Insight. We'll just do this all main phase because the opponent's going to concede to all of this probably. All right, they have Assassin's Trophy in hand, which is good to know about. And potentially problematic also, so just to keep that in mind. So they do have an out here to our stuff. All right, so we will Frantic Inventory here. Play a land, and I guess attack. Definitely a little bit of a weird one here. That resolves. They get another Codex Shredder, okay. Shredder's fine. And I'm not going to do anything unless our opponent does something here. We know that they have, yeah, Assassin's Trophy, and I guess they just assume that we have interaction for it, but we just don't. So I'm not going to, you know, yeah, there we go. So I was going to say, like, I'm not going to do something like we have it when we don't have it, you know. All right, so there's Field of Ruins, good. And then we'll just pass the turn here. Still have Teferi. Sorcerer Spyglass goes away. Opponent can Goblin Engineer, sacrificing something to bring that back, but I'll just Cling to Dust it. Cool. All right, now I think we've pretty much locked up this game now. We just need to win in time, which shouldn't really be a problem. We only have a couple basics left in the deck, so the Ghost Quarter lock might be the most dangerous thing that our opponent can do, but it's not even that bad. All right, we know that they have Assassin's Trophy in hand, so we're just going to Frantic Inventory. And I guess we'll Thought Scour our opponent. That's fine. Don't want to mill ourselves a little, you know, too much. I guess we'll just keep doing it. That's fine. Play a land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Teferi. right, the opponent's going to find something with Inventor's Fair. Okay, that's not what I expected them to do, but okay. They find Pithing Needle. Okay. We will just untap, I guess, these here. Discard an island. Oh, this is a smart heads-up play by the opponent. All right, so we'll go black and blue here, and we will drown this in the lock. This is a very heads-up play by the opponent, though. So now the opponents, we're not going to have drown in the lock up for Pithing Needle. So Pithing Needle is going to get to resolve, which is fine. I mean, we have other answers to it, but it was a good heads-up play by the opponent. There's Ghost Quarter. Yeah, all right. This is going to work. And then they'll get to play Pithing Needle. Yeah. We'll Surgical to Ghost Quarter. All right, there's a Goblin Engineer and a Gear Up or Aether Grid that we have to worry about in their deck, but that's about it. We have a Cryptic Command for that. They have to name Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Yeah, okay, they do. Let them keep that Pixis in hand because they're going to then use the Codex Shredder to mill it, which I'd rather have them mill than anything else here. It looks like they're just going to let it happen. Okay, that's fine. Sure, they can have a Pixis. Pixis doesn't really do anything. Just Thought Scour our opponent. Sure. Yeah, this is fine. No, they can have a Gaddock Teague. That's fine. Gaddock Teague does like nothing. We'll put... I guess we'll put a Force Negation on top. Opponent exiled their own Gaddock Teague, which is fine. Opponent finds another Shredder. Man, this does not make for very good content. Opponents just, spinning their engines here. All kinds of stuff. All right, so one thing we do have to start doing, actually, is we need to start using the Clings to Dust to get rid of our opponent's artifacts, because we don't want our opponent to be able to use Academy Ruins to continuously put artifacts on top of their library. Or we just need to blow up the Academy Ruin and destroy it. So I guess that's probably just easier. So let's just do that then. Sure, so Shredder goes on top, that's fine. Then we blow it up. And we'll blow up Inventor's Fair also. And we'll just plan on eating them with Clings to Dust. So we'll eat the Academy Ruins right now. They can have the Pixis, that's fine. And we'll just eat the Inventor's Fair right now. Oh, and there's an Ashiok. Cool. All right, so we will just play the Ashiok and mill the opponent here. Awesome, opponent concedes. All right, so we got the 4-1. Little iffy on the play on matches 4 and 5 there, but hope you got a good idea of this Esper control deck. Thought that everything worked out really well. The Goblins matchup's just really rough. And yeah, overall, very happy with how it played out. Let's open 5 chests here, and we'll see what we get. Just wound up selling all of my chests. And my tickets also. All right, let's open all of these chests and see what happens. We get a fancy Brokos, 55 play points, and nothing else. I don't think any of these cards are worth anything. Now. All right, well, anyway, thanks for hanging out. Make sure you subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and I'll have more content for you soon.